Peter stared at the vision board on his wall and almost laughed. That will never happen, he thought, shaking his head at the faded pictures of vacations, a new home, and financial freedom. What he didn't know was that a hidden breathing ritual, something already inside him since his very first day of life, would flip everything in just 30 days. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal the exact 5-minute protocol he used to turn those pictures into his new reality. And here's the twist no one talks about. It wasn't meditation. It was something far simpler, yet infinitely more powerful. Peter was 37, a husband and father to a 7-year-old boy, carrying the weight of overdue bills and sleepless nights. His wife tried to keep things steady, but the tension at home was undeniable. Every morning he'd glance at that dusty board in the corner of the living room, once a symbol of hope, now just a silent reminder of broken promises. The gap between what he dreamed of and what he lived felt like a canyon too wide to cross. But the truth is, transformation doesn't always come from hustle or more effort. In Peter's case, it began with something as ordinary as breath. When done with intention and sound, this combination created coherence in his body, syncing his heart and mind until his inner field shifted. And when the inside shifted, reality couldn't help but respond. Imagine aligning your breath so deeply that the world starts matching your rhythm. The first hints appeared almost instantly. Within minutes of trying this forgotten breathing practice, Peter felt his racing mind slow and his focus sharpen. His heart didn't pound as heavily, and his shoulders loosened for the first time in months. These were just small signals, whispers of change. But what Peter discovered with daily consistency wasn't just relief, it was the very key that unlocked his vision board. If you want to witness how, subscribe now, because this story will show you step by step how breath rewires destiny. Late that night, Peter sat at the kitchen table staring at a pile of bills he couldn't seem to shrink. His shoulders were tight, his jaw locked, every breath short and shallow. He didn't even realize how tense he looked until his 7-year-old son padded into the room clutching a crayon drawing. The boy tilted his head, studying his father like only kids can. "Daddy, you're breathing too fast," he said softly, almost like it was a secret. Peter frowned, caught off guard. "What do you mean, buddy?" The boy laid his drawing on the table, a simple picture of their family standing in front of a sunny house. Then he puffed out his belly and made an exaggerated inhale through his nose, holding it with a proud grin. Slowly, he let the air out with a long whoo sound. "Like this," he explained. "I saw my teacher show it when kids get nervous. It helps me when I feel scared at school. You should try it too." Peter couldn't help but chuckle, half amused, half embarrassed. Here he was drowning in adult problems, and his little boy was coaching him like some pint-sized guru. But as he watched his son take another slow breath, something inside him softened. For a moment, Peter mimicked the rhythm. Inhale, pause, exhale. And he felt his chest unclench just a little. It wasn't a miracle, not yet. But that night, with bills still unpaid and problems still looming, Peter realized something he hadn't in years. Maybe his son saw something he didn't. Maybe the answer wasn't out there in another side job or another sleepless night. Maybe it was right here, hidden in the breath he'd been ignoring all along. The next evening, Peter found himself alone in the living room, the glow of the TV flickering while his wife and son slept upstairs. His eyes landed on the dusty vision board tucked into the corner. For months it had mocked him. Pictures of vacations, a new car, a life that felt galaxies away. But now, after what his son had shown him, he felt a nudge. What if the board wasn't the problem? What if he was? He grabbed his phone and typed in "breathing for stress," not expecting much. That's when he stumbled onto a video about intentional breathing and energy alignment. The host spoke about how just 5 minutes a day could reset your nervous system, sharpen your mind, even shift your reality. Peter rolled his eyes at first. It sounded like New Age fluff. Still, he remembered how light he'd felt copying his son the night before. Curiosity won. Sitting on the couch, he followed along. Inhale through the nose for 4 counts. Hold briefly. Exhale slowly for 6. He tried it once, then again. By the 5th round, something unusual happened. His heartbeat slowed, his jaw relaxed, and the storm in his head grew quieter. For the first time in months, he wasn't gasping for survival. He was simply there, breathing. Peter opened his eyes and looked at the vision board again. For a split second, it didn't feel like a cruel joke. It felt possible, as if the pictures had been waiting for him to breathe life back into them. He didn't know why, but he sensed this tiny practice could unlock something bigger, and he couldn't shake the question, what would happen if I kept this up every day? The first few nights Peter tried the breathing, it felt almost ridiculous. He'd sit on the couch, counting in his head 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, and then let the air out slowly. At first, nothing seemed different. The bills were still there, the stress at work didn't vanish, and he caught himself thinking, seriously, breathing, this is supposed to change my life? One night, his wife caught him mid-practice. "What are you doing?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Peter shrugged, embarrassed. "Just breathing, I guess." She smiled faintly, but shook her head, as if to say, "We need solutions, not gimmicks." That doubt sank in. Maybe he was wasting time chasing something that sounded more like wishful thinking than real change. Still, something tugged at him. Every time he thought about quitting, he remembered the look on his son's face, the way the little boy puffed his belly and whispered, "Like this, Daddy." It was too pure to ignore. Yet even with that memory, Peter fought the urge to roll his eyes every time he sat down to practice. He wanted proof, something concrete to show that it wasn't all in his head. That proof didn't come right away. Instead, there were subtle shifts, a little less tension in his shoulders, a softer tone in his voice at dinner, too small to count as victories. But deep inside, a seed was planted. What if it only feels silly because I'm not giving it time? What if the real results don't come in minutes, but in days? That single doubt, mixed with a flicker of hope, kept him going, one breath at a time.
It happened on an ordinary morning. Peter woke up expecting the same heaviness, but instead, he noticed something strange. His chest didn't feel like a clenched fist anymore. The air moved easier. He made coffee, and for once, he wasn't rushing, wasn't snapping. His wife looked at him across the table, puzzled. "You're different today. What's going on?" Peter just smiled, unsure how to explain that 5 minutes of breathing felt like taking off a backpack he'd been carrying for years. Later that day at work, another surprise came. An email from an old colleague popped up, someone he hadn't heard from in months. The message was short, almost casual. "Hey Peter, I might have something for you. Let's talk." His pulse quickened. Was it just timing, or had the breathing really started to shift things around him? He shook his head, half dismissing it, but deep down, he felt the timing was too sharp to be random. That night, while helping his son with homework, Peter caught himself laughing, actually laughing. The boy looked up at him, wide-eyed, as if this lighter version of his dad was a stranger he'd been waiting to meet. It struck Peter, maybe the breathing wasn't about fixing problems, but about changing him. The calmer he felt, the more the world seemed to soften around him. He wasn't ready to call it a miracle, not yet, but something was happening, and the curiosity only grew stronger with each passing day. And here's where I want to hear from you. If you noticed even the smallest shift, better sleep, a calmer heart, a lighter mood, wouldn't you keep going? Drop a comment below with, "I choose to breathe." let's see how many of us are ready to breathe possibility into our lives. A week into his new routine, Peter noticed life moving in strange, almost synchronized patterns. On the way to work, he bumped into an old neighbor who casually mentioned a company hiring for projects that matched Peter's skill set. That same afternoon, the colleague who'd emailed him called back with a proposal that sounded like the very opportunity he'd pinned to his board months ago. The timing made his skin prickle. Doors that had been shut tight were suddenly swinging open. At home, his wife couldn't ignore the shift anymore. She teased him at dinner. "Whatever breathing thing you're doing, keep it up. You're easier to live with." For the first time in years, her eyes sparkled with a mix of relief and curiosity. Peter laughed, realizing the practice wasn't only reshaping his own state, but weaving new harmony into his family. Even their son seemed to notice, tugging his sleeve and whispering, "See, Daddy, breathing works." The more he practiced, the more aligned he felt. He didn't wake up dreading the day anymore. He woke with a quiet sense of anticipation, as if the universe was preparing surprises. Every inhale seemed to carry possibility. Every exhale peeled away a layer of doubt. The once dusty vision board no longer mocked him. It called to him. Each picture felt a little closer, almost alive. He couldn't explain it logically, but he sensed a current flowing beneath his daily life, connecting him to opportunities he'd almost given up on. The pattern was undeniable. The more he breathed with intention, the more reality responded in kind. And it left him with a burning question. What bigger shifts were waiting if he kept going? 2 weeks later, just as Peter was beginning to trust the process, reality hit him hard. A promising contract he'd been banking on slipped away at the last minute, leaving him staring at the same stack of bills that hadn't moved in months. He felt the old pressure return, his chest tightening, breath shortening, that familiar voice whispering, "See? Nothing really changes." That evening, he sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, ready to call it quits on the whole breathing thing. "I'm wasting my time," he muttered, the weight of failure heavy in his tone. His wife walked in, studied him for a moment, then sat beside him. "Peter," she said softly, "you're not the same man you were 3 weeks ago. I see it. Our son sees it. Don't let one setback erase that." Her words struck him deeper than he expected. He looked at her, realizing she wasn't clinging to the breathing practice itself, she was clinging to the version of him it was bringing back. The husband who laughed at dinner, who played with their son, who felt present instead of distracted. For the first time, Peter understood this wasn't just about contracts or money, it was about becoming the man his family needed. With a shaky inhale, he closed his eyes and returned to the rhythm his son had first shown him. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. As the tension slowly drained, he whispered, "I breathe as if it's already mine." In that quiet moment, something inside shifted again. The bills were still there, but so was hope. And deep down, he knew giving up now would mean losing more than opportunities. It would mean losing himself. Over the next few days, the strangest little patterns began to unfold. Peter would think of someone he hadn't spoken to in years, and suddenly their message would appear on his phone. Driving to work, he caught the exact phrase from his vision board, "Freedom in balance," painted on a billboard as if the world itself was winking at him. Even at the grocery store, he overheard 2 strangers talking about an opportunity almost identical to one he'd written in his journal months ago. His wife noticed it too. One night, while sorting through the mail, she laughed and said, "Have you realized how many coincidences are happening around you lately?" Peter wanted to brush it off, but the truth was he couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. The breathing wasn't just calming him, it was tuning him, like an instrument suddenly aligned to the right frequency. At work, he began to feel sharper, quicker. An offhand idea in a meeting suddenly caught his manager's attention, earning him praise he hadn't heard in years. At home, his son seemed magnetized to him, eager to show drawings and talk about dreams. The board in the corner no longer felt like decoration. It felt like a map, slowly activating piece by piece. Each day brought a small spark. Nothing massive yet, but enough to fuel his belief that something big was on its way. And deep down, Peter knew the real breakthrough wasn't going to show up in whispers forever. The whispers were just leading him to the roar. On the 30th day, Peter woke before the sun, something inside urging him to practice with more intention than ever. He sat in front of his vision board, breathing slowly, each inhale carrying possibility, each exhale peeling away doubt. For the first time, he didn't see distant dreams taped to cardboard. He felt them, alive and pulsing, as if the board itself was breathing with him. That afternoon, the phone rang. It was the colleague who'd reached out weeks earlier. This time, the news was clear. A contract worth $10,000, exactly the number Peter had scribbled on a sticky note months ago, was his if he wanted it. His hands trembled as he hung up, hardly able to process that what once felt impossible had landed right in front of him. As if on cue, his wife called from across the living room. "Peter, you need to see this." She'd just gotten word that a small studio space, the one they joked about when looking at pictures for the board, had opened up for rent at a price they could actually manage. The timing was too perfect, too aligned to be coincidence. Breathless, Peter looked at her and simply said, "It's happening." That evening, with his son curled up in his lap, Peter pointed to the drawing that had started it all, the family smiling under a bright sun. "You're right," he whispered. His boy grinned, puffed out his belly, and let out a long, slow exhale. In that simple moment, Peter understood the board hadn't changed. He had changed, and the world had no choice but to follow. Weeks after the breakthrough, Peter's home had a new rhythm. Each night before bed, he knelt beside his son and guided him through the same 4-6 breathing that once felt silly to him. In through the nose, buddy. Hold it. Now let it go slow. His eyes grew heavy with peace, drifting into sleep with a calm Peter wished he'd known at that age. In the mornings, his wife joined him in the ritual. Side by side at the kitchen table, before the rush of the day began, they breathed together, slow, steady, intentional. She admitted one morning with a smile, "It's like the house feels different now, lighter." And Peter knew it wasn't just the house, it was them, living in a new frequency. Looking back at the board, he finally understood the truth. It hadn't been the pictures that changed his life. The car, the money, the studio, those were just reflections. The real shift happened inside him the moment he decided to breathe as if the dream was already real. It wasn't the board that transformed Peter. It was Peter who powered the board. So he updated it, not with things, but with experiences, family adventures, moments of laughter, evenings of peace. No longer chasing symbols of success, he was breathing life into the present. And in that integration, he discovered the secret. When you change the rhythm of your breath, you change the rhythm of your life. Peter's story reminds us that the power was never in the board or in the pictures taped to it. It was in the breath he carried all along. When he chose to breathe with intention, his mind calmed, his heart aligned, and his reality shifted to meet the man he was becoming. The real miracle wasn't that he manifested objects. It was that he rediscovered presence, peace, and purpose, and everything else followed. And now I want to turn this moment to you. What if the gap between where you are and where you long to be isn't about working harder, but breathing deeper? What if the key to unlocking your vision board, your goals, your dreams is already inside you, waiting to be remembered? Take this as your invitation. Start tonight.
5 minutes of slow, intentional breath. Inhale possibility, exhale resistance. See what changes, not only around you, but within you. Because when you transform your inner field, the outer world has no choice but to respond. If Peter's story stirred something inside you, don't let it fade. Subscribe now for more stories like this and drop a comment below with the words, "I breathe my future." Let's light up the comments with a declaration that your breath and your destiny are already alive. And don't forget to like this video so more people can discover the hidden practice that changed everything.